Thank you, James. So, welcome to the panel. And since morning we are hearing about trust, identity management, and security. So this panel is all about security and anti-fraud. So specifically on the mobile operators. So we have the panelists here, and I would like them to introduce themselves. Maybe I think Alok, you can start from there.
Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Myself, Alok Maurya. I work for Globe Teleservices, and I'm working for Globe Teleservices for the last 6 years, working in the core domain of providing security solutions to the telco operators. And yeah, now I'm part of GTS Tech Labs, which is again a technology venture of GTS.
Hi, good afternoon, guys. My name is Varun Pandey. I manage EMEA sales function for Tata Communication, been in Tata since 2004. By the way, I happen to be one of the MEF member and board member as well, before Anurag took that seat by voting. So, so good to see you here. I think we talked about some of the other subjects like trust, and now we're going to talk about fraud and anti-fraud, so it's going to be interesting.
Thank you, Varun. My name is Renuka Jaur, and been 20 years in the industry, I think with roaming, and now with A2P firewall securitization for the last decade. I am currently heading the firewall solutions at HGC globally, and I do manage the entire sales and the operations portfolio. Well, just to give you a background on fraud, Rajesh and I started our work journey at MAC. I mean, not many would know about MAC, but it was a part of the roaming services when we used to send faxes to operators telling that there was international roaming fraud. So from then to mobile phones, we have come a long journey. So I'm very happy to be here. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Renuka. So I'm Nipun Popli. I am currently working as the regional manager for the India region for the operator partnerships team at Infogrid. And I've been with them for about 6 years now. And happy to be here, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm Ranga here. I head the technology department in GTS Tech Labs. Thanks for having me here, Pallavi.
Thank you everyone. And I think we can begin with the session. This is going to be the interesting session because I think everyone is aware about what is the importance of security and anti-fraud in perspective of mobile operators. So to begin with, I would like to ask, what is the necessity of security and anti-fraud, and what are the challenges and constraints? Maybe we can start with Varun for this.
Hello. Yeah, so I think in messaging industry, it's all about ring fencing. If I see from the operator perspective, if I see from the consumer perspective, it is all about, what kind of messages you are getting, what content you are getting, is it disturbing content, are you getting spam messages, and so on and so forth. The reason fraud exists in the business is the commercial modeling and the commercial benefit of the spammer or people who make money out of it. And if you see today, telecom fraud is in fact maybe number 2 or number 3 on different global frauds which are happening. And SMS, because it's a growth industry, there's a lot to be done in terms of regulation and how the models have to work commercially as well as how technology can help. So there's a big growth in the industry, and that's why it's easy that people are getting attracted, and it's easy money for many of the fraudsters. And that puts the job on the whole ecosystem, that what do we do, how do we manage things, and right, starting from, if you say, MEF has done a lot of work on educating operators, as James was saying, operators, aggregators, as well as enterprise customers and consumers that what they need to do. One of the projects I still remember, the UK registry project, is around that. So there are many such initiatives. In India, we see DLT. Now there's a mixed view whether DLT is working properly or not working. And whatever model you're going to come up, fraudster will definitely find a way to beat you, and then the job comes back to us as an industry to deal with it and find the best solution so that we retain the ease of the service, and yet we manage the ecosystem so we don't face any challenge from the fraud perspective.
Correct. In fact, I was going through some of the reports in GSMA. So they have mentioned that as per the Europol's European Cybercrime Center report in 2019, that fraud was around 12 billion US dollars, which is huge. And as James rightly said, that all the operators should have the firewall systems in the place and the monetization of that to secure your subscribers and getting this, frauds happening. Like, we should stop this. So, Alok, do you think what could be the constraint about this? Like, why operators are not going aggressively up for this part? Maybe some point of view.
Yeah, so talking about constraint, it can be multiple, like maybe a financial constraint. Individual operator in a particular country, they may not have that financial strength to, get it on a capex or some other business model. There may be a technical constraint, like a particular operator using certain OEM, like a network service provider equipments, for which they don't have a active managed support or managed services, so they can't really scale as and when needed, or they can get a support to deploy a new alien solution within their network as an integrated part. So, sometimes you see, there are commercial constraints, like enterprise team within a mobile operator. They may not like to have much regulation for their enterprise business unit to go reach out to the existing enterprises, give them some limitation like, okay, this is the new way of doing business now because we have got some new solution around. So there are multiple constraints that can be thought of. And yes, this all combined, plays a role when you go and talk to the operator to decide upon. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Alok. So considering this way, so my next question is, what are the best possible ways, to protect the network from these kind of frauds? Maybe Renuka, you would like to say something?
Well, I think to begin with, I think fraud has always been there. I think everybody knows spam. We have been speaking for the last 10 years, at least from the time I started my A2P journey. Spam has always been there then, and it's still there. So I would say largely the operators or the ecosystem goes back to morning's discussion where Mr. Upadhyay sir and James all were mentioning about the education bit, right? So there is a lot of education that MEF is doing with regards to the operator and understanding that security plays a major role in any operator side. Now, this security of an operator or an MNO is largely dependent on the local regulatory, right? So the local regulator also has to be equally playing an important role to ensure that the end subscribers are safe from all this fraud. So as we grow digitally, I'm sure this fraud is bound to be there. So firewall is one of the solutions, education being the biggest solution, I would say, at all aspects and everybody in the ecosystem, from the brand till the end customer.
Thank you, Renuka. So Ranga, would you like to add something on the upcoming technologies, because you are passionate about the technologies?
Thank you.
So what could be the different kind of technologies you can think of?
Yeah. So before coming to the technology perspective, I'd like to add a couple of points which other co-panelists added, and also in the morning what we discussed. See, the fraud per se, it used to be thought as a needle in the haystack problem in the beginning. When I recall in 2001-2 when I used to represent ITU from Siemens, even though we knew something like a fraud or something, we used to call a different type of things over there, people used to ignore. But then over the period, what happened is, it's like this. People used to talk about trust and all those things. Now we all know about COVID, I'll just draw an analogy. There is a popular model called, SIR model. SIR model basically means an individual or an ecosystem is susceptible to a virus, then it gets into an infectious, and then it becomes a carrier, then you move on to make a recovery.
Correct.
So now, when it was susceptible, everybody was, okay, as I told you, it's in the needle in the haystack problem. The moment they became infectious, they were waiting that, will I go into disease state, or, can I recover, or is it a problematic? Then it came a problem where you need to recover. All right? Now we are in that stage.
Correct.
You can't, you are susceptible. No way, however you want to build, you are susceptible. Are you infectious? Yes, because the technology per se you pointed out. People are now moving to data analytics. In the data analytics, what we are doing is see the data, identify the pattern, and see how I can fix the problem. Come up with various AML algorithms.
Like a CDR analysis.
Various. Now, one thing we forget is, as I told you, susceptible thing cannot be cured by looking at data.
Correct.
What we basically, I'm shameless here, but let me promote. What we do at Tech Labs is, we analyze the ecosystem to say where the whole system is susceptible for this, so that you can spread the infectious.
Correct.
So that's the need of the things. And for that, the technology and tools we are having here are not meant for that, but we have to adapt. The engineering job is to adapt those technologies available to ensure minimal susceptibility and ensure the infectious are contained, so that we don't go into the reactive mode rather than the proactive. So being that way, the AML technologies have to be very efficiently used, and that will be used in the coming days. That's my point of view.
So considering AI and ML, like Alok, would you like to put some limelight, like how it will be beneficial? Because see, there are two different kinds of market, developed market, developing market. How the operators are going to accept, or maybe as Ranga said, like how they are going to, accept these kind of technologies. Are they really aware of it, or we are putting giving a lot of knowledge about this?
So take it like this, technology is not related to, okay, this technology is for telco or this technology is for fintech. It's agnostic. It's available, how you want to mold it, shape it, use it, up to you for different industry. Let's talk about blockchain or DLT, which is implemented widely and accepted widely in India now. You have done a marvelous job by writing a long regulation, planning everything perfectly, and then deploying it. But at the same time, when you start looking at the commercial channel and regulating it, you missed out that there is P2P, there is signaling which is still open. You need a firewall. You need something over there. So using one technology to act on some fraudster on some different method, you have to keep your eyes on the other loopholes that you are leaving behind. AI ML, yes. CDR analysis, yes. There are multiple technologies that can be used, and not one single technology you can say that, okay, I am good at CDR analysis, I will do this and I will just do it like that. You will have to use combination of it. Use CDR analytics, use test call generator, the oldest and best known technology, yes, it is useful. And then comes the role of AI ML. When you see the pattern, when you understand what's happening, then you create your rule engine based on AI and ML techniques, and then later automate it, removing the constraint of human manpower or resources. So that's my take on it.
Good. Nipun, would you like to add some highlights on this?
Yeah, so I think picking up from what Alok just said is that it's very important for the MNOs to ring fence their networks. I think you also mentioned this, that there are two aspects to it. One is about the commercial part of it, and one is about the user experience. So it's for the MNOs very important to firstly stop that revenue loss. And another very important part of revenue loss is when we spoke about fraud pretty much all morning, right? So when these spam or unwanted messages come into the network and go to the subscribers, that can also be a reason for churn. So that's another very important aspect for the MNO to want to have a firewall. And as you correctly said, it's It's not just the user, preference, etc., what the blockchain is doing today, but it's very important to have a firewall to make sure that, this fraud that mostly comes in from international networks, even from P2P, as you mentioned, SIM boxes, those kind of things. There's even, a lot of development now happening on OTT bypass, for the SMS OTPs and so on. So it is very, very important to have a firewall, and that's why there are, technology companies like all of us who are there to provide those firewalls to the MNOs.
Good. So with this AI ML technologies, like nowadays we see the IoT-based devices. We all are using IoT-based devices. So there are multiple ways the frauds are happening through these IoT devices. And this is something new in the market, to be honest, and how we should tackle that part. Like, do we have any solutions in the market for this? Or maybe if you can give some, highlights or some examples related to this, it would be really great. Like, anybody who can start on that.
So for the IoTs, one way of looking it is, for IoTs there should be a separate security solution altogether, not directly related to the messaging or voice firewall solution. But at the same time, it is related. I will come from the point where there is an IoT device which is into a car or some other devices. The nature of IoT devices, the SIM card that is used, the nature is it can be a global SIM card. It can reach any country crossing the boundary irrespective of from where you have purchased it. So because of this nature, they have good roaming coverage that can be exploited. The usage, IoT devices are meant to be M2M communication, or sometimes from the office, the central office to this device to check certain parameters it is used. So there is a pattern, why this is getting used, what is the use case. Based on that, is the usage of that particular card is, you can see if the usage is as per the requirement or not. Let's say you have access to a IoT SIM card and it is broadcasting message, like anything, because it has a good roaming coverage.
It's
and
a
maybe
global coverage, basically.
Yeah, a global coverage, and maybe there is no roaming, contract or free cost contract between, the country from where this SIM card has originated. So you are getting coverage of multiple countries at maybe zero cost or low cost, and you are using it as a SIM box or SIM farm route. So one firewall can see the usage pattern of this IoT SIM card and can then trace down and track down and then block it. Yes, we should have a different category of IoT SIM card registration within the firewall. They should be managed separately rather than the generic rule that we develop for the normal usage. But yes, the provision can be added into the firewall, and it is there in most of all of our solutions, I believe so. Yeah.
I'll just add on to that, because we have recently seen, like you said, the IoT devices are growing much faster than the normal personal devices, and it's going to grow further with the 5G and maybe 6G in some time. What Alok was saying, I totally agree. The contracts behind the signaling contract and the roaming contracts, they are dated. Okay, the free peering exists between all the global providers. Okay, and the routing is done based on the A number. So there is no control that who is sending this traffic, and it just goes with the flow. And that is actually causing a lot of issues and going to cause a lot of issues in the coming days. So we have, from our side, has taken, although we are not a mobile operator as Tatacom, but we are still driving industry initiative to review those old contracts and see how we can monetize them, because as I said, some of them are free pairing, some of them like quad or hexadecimal numbers, whereas what we are talking about, the payload here is if you talk about SMS, it's like the average cost today would be between 10 cents or 5 cents, something like that. So it's a multi-fold difference in what you're using it for and how they were constructed in past. So that's one thing. And as I said, one of the other thing, like Alok was saying, you have to use more technology for IoTs for sure, because if this is a personal device, there would be somebody in the end may complain one day and you can catch that fraud. But if you say IoT is a machine, So you have to
it's very
control it,
difficult
and you
to
have to
catch.
find what you're going to do that. So AI ML for sure is pretty necessary for this.
Thanks. So, Ranga, you would like to add something on this? Because
If time permits, I would like to
yeah.
probably, I'd like to stretch a bit of, this scope into a little, because the reason is IoT will be a disruptive and, encroaching technology, and a lot of devices you can start seeing on the handset. So that's why it becomes a more of a consumer problem, or, the end customer problem. I'm audible, right? Yeah. There are two, three aspects which needs to be looked into. In the morning we spoke about trust.
Yes.
Rajiv, pardon me because I'm using, a few more jargons here. So there is a concept called S2E. S2E is basically whenever a trust is built, it's built on societal, environmental and economic factors. So societal is basically we understand in which society we live. Environment is very basically in the which environment you are using, the IT systems or the type of banks or domain, whatever. Economic is for an individual, whether it favors or not. All those are the aspects on which things are built. Now where we are moving is the trust is now being broken or moved into such a way that you need to bring in a contract to build that trust.
Correct.
So policies are made to enforce the trust. Trust is no more a human relationship. And being machines in the place, there are a lot of contractual obligations need to be put in place. That means, say for example, IoT horizon, for example, in the banking sector. So monetary policy from the RBI has to be in place. When it comes to trade and security, so Commerce Ministry has to take care of, for example, cargo industry starts using IoT devices. So how do you ensure, the securities are in place? So per se, IoT security will be the biggest topic in coming days, and a lot of thought need to be given. Technology is one aspect of it. While we understand the fundamental nature of where the fraud happens, or why the fraud happens, or why there is an arena for fraud happening, is also important because it covers the policy factor.
And technology will keep evolving also.
Oh, absolutely. Technology is only an adapter. Okay.
Got it.
So you don't generally develop, majority of the cases you don't develop technology for a particular problem. It's only rare cases. It's like screenplay versus the script problem. Okay. So technologies are there. We need to adapt it to meet the problem.
Got it. Good. So in messaging business, like the aggregators, they are, when they are terminating the traffic, they are giving the high DLR or, conversion ratio. And that is a fake DLR or fake CR. So when customers says, like, they are saying, oh, the quality is good, but it's fake, right? So how shall we control on these kind of frauds which are happening right now in the market? And this is ongoing, to be honest. So maybe, Renuka, would you like to give some?
Well, it depends on which side of the fence I am. So, well, on the either sides, I think coming from first from an aggregator point of view, so when an MNO decides to raise the price, right, why do you have a fake DLR? As he said, it's a commercial impact, right? So all of a sudden the operator decides to raise, put the price at 15 cents, which was all of a sudden 6 cents to 15 cents. Now the aggregator on one side is forced to send the traffic at 15 cents for all the time what you're sending at 8. He has to make up for the loss. He cannot go back to the brand which is already committed to a volume for maybe 6 months is committed to a volume. He cannot go back to the brand and say, oh, now it's 15 cents or whatever is the rate. So there is a challenge that the operator will face, aggregator will face in the whole process. Hence, aggregator finds it easier to do a fake delivery. No, whether it's right or wrong, it depends on which side are you sitting, right? As long as it's not eating into the profits of an operator, as long as it's for a social media campaign, I think from an aggregator point of view, if you ask from an aggregator point of view, it is okay to do it.
Okay.
Yeah? But it's not right to do it, but it's okay to ensure that they're not making losses. Not my personal opinion, but just an industry opinion. Having said that, to mitigate from the MNO point of view, MNOs would directly need to have direct connections to avoid this kind of fake DLR. First of all, there is no exact pattern as to how much messages should come, right? So the greed from the operator to the aggregator keeps going on, and then hence this fake delivery keeps happening. This is an opinion which I've seen in the market. Only when you raise a price is when you start seeing a lot of thrashing or fake DLRs happening in the market. Yeah.
What is your opinion, Nipun, about this?
Well, I would probably beg to differ on whether it's right. I mean, you said it's okay. I mean, you said it's not right, but yeah, I mean, it is an existing issue. You rightly said it's an industry issue. Very importantly, it should not be the case. I mean, it causes a loss of revenue, it causes a loss of user experience. Again, I think I keep repeating that term, but user experience is something that's very important. And if the MNO does not control it, then the user may, lose trust. Again, we spoke about trust all morning. They may lose trust in the MNO and want to move to another operator, right? So that's a key part, and which is why, again, we come back to the fact that technology and firewall, these things which can detect this inflation in, CRs and DLRs, the fake, traffic that comes in, it's very important to have a firewall in place, and one that is adaptable, one that can, constantly adapt to, new technologies, new ways of causing fraud. And that's why, a very robust solution is needed through a firewall to stop this.
Got it, got it. So we are continuously, sorry, yeah.
I agree with you. Wrong is wrong. So basically, I think the whole issue here will be the buying channel, so who's buying from the enterprise side, what understanding they have, and that's whether we don't like it. The job will remain on us as aggregator as well as MNO, that if we have to provide a good service, we have to demand the enterprise to understand what they are buying and convince them for what they're buying. If we give them half-cooked thing, or if we bow down to means we are having, some of us were having this discussion in the afternoon, that some of the banks in India are buying pretty cheap, and that's not correct. And they're buying cheap because someone's selling them cheap. And then when someone's selling them cheap, they have to do something wrong there. So it's a cycle. So that education has to go back to enterprise, because ultimately what matters to them is how good is their delivery. Because between all these messages, if few bad messages or wrong messages go, they're going to lose their trust, brand, as well as services. So they need consumer as much as we need them and MNO need them. So.
Got it. So we just have few minutes left, but I would like to put a light on very important part. We have been talking about the anti-fraud security on the perspective of mobile network operators. But what are the measures we are taking to educate end users or the subscribers of these MNOs? Because they are the one who are suffering from this, right? Ultimately. So what measures we should take to educate them?
Well, please. I think in the whole session since morning, we have been making the A2P as the villain. A2P is not the villain. It is the call to action which is causing trouble, right? It is the link which is sent in one of the messages. When you click, that's when fraud happens. So that education, I think we have spoken since morning, education being the main medium of, to operators and subscribers. I still believe education plays a major role to educate everybody in the ecosystem, from the brand to the aggregator to the MNO to the end subscriber. Maybe different channels. I can see in LinkedIn for the firewall securitization, a lot of us do post and do make the community understand as far as the MNO community. But for the end subscriber, what are we doing? We are sending them messages, especially in India. We have 1.3 billion people with 800 mobile subscribers, almost everybody using smartphones. Do they all speak the same language? We are sending them messages saying that do not click this link. Do you even understand English? My dad, 87 years old, gets message every day from SBI saying that if you do not click this, your bank account will be closed. Now, I come from a community of A2P. It's very easy to tell my dad, oh, do not open it because it is fraud. But how many of us educate our own people within our community? Do your husbands, wives even know that they're not supposed to click? So media, education is important. And for me, it is like we do for COVID or tobacco advertisements. This is the kind of advertisements we all put together, should put out in the market, so that everybody understands that this is fraud and they're not supposed to click it, to ensure no loss of revenue happens for them.
Thank you, Renuka.
I think education per se, Renuka spoke about how the COVID and other education has been happening. I think in India we witnessed, highest digital inclusion in a sort of a overnight way. That could have been the biggest fraud thing. But government did a wonderful job. I think majority of us here, we are not aware what the measures government has taken. There is a program run by them called Samvad, which educated them to such an extent for on financial inclusion, what all the do's and don'ts, how they have to use and all those things. So I happen to be one of those guys who did a lot of social media analytics for them. So hence I personally know how painstakingly government and officers took measures in terms of training it. So hence I don't think it's not an impossible task. It's only that willingness and things, but it has to happen. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I think it's interesting session to hear from the market leaders like you. And I think we should end the session now. Maybe James can take it over. And
Pallavi, thank you very much, and thanks to all the speakers. And now your speakers will be provided with a little memento of the occasion today. So take it away. Thank you. You get one. Look at that. Pallavi got one. She was a moderator. I didn't get one. But I'll survive. Oh, I shouldn't have said that, but cheers. And picture, all of you. Yeah, come forward, picture. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So we're nearly at lunch, but before a round of applause, everyone. Thank you.